Hello, my name is Jessica, and this is the second of the series of short videos that is intended to share some of the things that I typically do on a daily basis prior to me taking a typical asana class. And by that I mean just typically when you take a yoga class or a yoga asana class, there will be a Surya Namaskar A in it or a Surya Namaskar B. So the characteristic aspect of both of those sequences is chaturanga, up dogs, down dogs, maybe a cobra, maybe a standing halfway lift, tadasana, things of those nature, so a sun salutation. And what I've noticed that for me in particular is that sometimes my calves don't feel ready to do all that, particularly the amount of dorsiflexion that's required in the ankles to do downward facing dog. And so this is a series of things that you can do in order to help your body feel prepared to do that. The other part that this practice will help with is if you find that your hamstrings are really too tight for you to be in a forward fold that early into a practice, because a lot of times that can feel like a lot for some who don't have very open hamstrings. Cool. So that being said, today you'll need at least 2 blankets and perhaps 2 blocks. I'll show 2 variations of things that you can do, and then you can play with them however you would like. Cool. So the first thing that you'll need to do is you will grab your blanket and unfold it so it looks like so. So this is a standard yoga blanket that's folded 4 times. It's also a Mexican sarape type of thing, and it's just folded 4 times. You can use a towel if you don't have that, or multiple towels to help. What you'll start with is you'll take the fringe side and you'll neatly and compactly fold it over. And that compactly is really important because the tighter your blanket roll is, the more feedback the blanket will be able to give to you. And when you're done, you'll have something that looks roughly like this. So that's what we'll do with the first blanket. If you have sensitive knees, ankles, shins, that type of thing, or you're practicing on a hardwood floor like I am, you might want a second blanket. And the second blanket will just simply go to protect the fronts of the shins, the ankles from the surface that you're on. And then you'll grab 1 block, and you'll grab the other block, and you're creating enough space for your body to go in that hole. Cool. When you've got all that set up, go ahead and stand on top of your knees, and you'll just simply set the blanket there for a moment. Bring the crown of your head towards the floor, and then tuck that blanket roll as tightly behind the backs of your knees as you can. Once it's pretty wedged in there, you'll bring your spine up to vertical. And some of you might find that, oh, buddy man, this is already a lot. And so your blocks are here to help in case if you need to lift your torso or your pelvis a little bit away from your heels in order to dissipate some of the tension. So we're looking to send sensation to the backs of our hamstrings, the backs of our calves. And some of you will stay right here and you'll be happy to do so. Some of you will shift your weight a little right to left. And all that does is it changes how the blanket is applying a bit of compression to both the hamstrings as well as the calf muscles. And so you're just noticing what you notice. And our knees are primarily a hinge joint, but they do have a little bit of rotation that's possible, and so that's all we're really accessing here. And you're just noticing and you're pausing and you're breathing. And then once you feel like you've done that enough, you'll go ahead and come to a still neutral spot, take a quarter turn of that blanket and draw it in the middle of your calf. So it's in that bulbous part where the gastrocnemius and the soleus meet. And you might remain completely still here, be like, yep, lady, gotta stay here. You might choose to shift your weight a little bit right to left. I noticed that for me in this pose, or doing these 3 variations of this pose, I enjoy to shift my weight to one side and then shimmy a little bit like I'm Shakira or someone whose hips don't lie, and you're kind of, you're going to just allow a little bit more of gravity to assist the body weight to descend into the blanket. And I like it. It's a hurts so good type of sensation. And then you'll shift your weight to the other hip and you'll do the same thing. And it's just really tiny movement. A lot of times things don't have to be big to be impactful, and it's one of those things I try to remind myself and I try to remind you of. Cool. And then once you feel balanced between right and left, you'll go ahead and come to stillness. Take one more quarter turn of your blanket, drawing it in the back where your heel meets. So it's hopefully getting your Achilles. And for some of you, that might be quite a bit, and you might stay there. You might find that you want to shift your weight back and maybe lift the knees just a millimeter off the floor. You might find that you can point your toes up to your butt and then release the toes down. But you're paying attention to what's happening. So this is a plantar flexion of your feet. And then you relax them. Cool. And then once you feel done exploring that, you will complete that and draw your blanket roll off to one side. Come forward onto your hands and your knees and just extend one leg back, pulsing a little bit forward and back, keeping the toes curled under, the abdomen in towards the spine. And once you feel like you've done that enough, you'll lower the knee down and switch sides. And so this is just to allow blood to get to that part where we've just compressed things quite a bit. Awesome. And then once you're done with that, you'll take a moment to pause and just notice what you notice. So that variation works really well if you've got props and if you've got time and you've got the proper props. So if you're like, great, I'd like to release my calves, but I don't have any of those things, what can I do? There's a solution. This next one relies upon the anatomy of your body and how it's almost like that thing from Julia Roberts where certain parts of the body, Julia Roberts, I believe it was Runaway Bride, where certain parts of the body can fit into other parts of the body. She might have said that in Pretty Woman, I don't remember, but she did say it in some movie. In any case, in this variation, we're going to use the shin to release some of the tension, the tightness that might be in the back of the opposite calf. For this variation, you might be assisted if you had two blocks to help you lift up, and it might be something that you could be totally fine without having. Cool. So, once we're on our hands and knees, the first thing that you're going to do is you will take your right leg and bring your right shin to the back of your left calf. And the first thing that you'll do, well, the second thing since you just did your first thing, is you'll slide up and down. And I'm applying a little bit of pressure. I'm not going balls to the walls crazy, but I am applying a bit of pressure under my, or rather into my left calf with my right shin. And after I've gone up and down a few times, I will then start to go right to left, as though I'm playing a violin and my right shin is the bow. And so you'll do that a few times, going right to left, doing a cross fiber massage, working your way all the way up to the knee, and then all the way down to the ankle. And then once you feel like you've done that enough and that there's a little bit of heat in the back of the left calf, you'll pick a point that feels like there was some stuff that came up for you. Push down to the top of the right shin, start to press your bum back towards your left heel, and some of you will stay right there and be like, yep, Blake, that's a lot. And some of you will start to walk your hands back. Now, there is no one way to do this. It really depends on how your body is tight. And what we're doing now is changing our relationship to gravity and how the right shin is pressing into the left calf. So you might stay just like that. I sometimes find that I like to wiggle my pelvis again, a little right to left. It sends a fun little sensation down into the inside edge of my left foot. And sometimes I will just stay there and rock right to left and be like, yeah, am I breathing? Not really so well at the moment, but I hope you are. And then we'll come forward, hands and knees, and then you'll pick a different point, push down to the right shin, press your pelvis back towards your heels, and then maybe you stay there, maybe you start to walk your hands back. So the blocks come in because it allows you to mitigate some of that pressure. You can lift up. And I noticed that here, just as we did in the first exercise, I like to shift a little right to left. But what happens now is I find that I have more tension on the medial side, so the inside of my left calf, than I do on the right. And so I'll spend a little bit more time there, noticing if I'm breathing. And then when I'm ready, I'll come forward, hands and knees. Draw it one more time, drawing that right shin to the back of your left ankle. And this one I definitely encourage you to use blocks. And then you can play with what happens to that right foot. Do you lift it? Do you lower it? Do you evert it? Do you try to invert it? Well, that's not going to happen. But you're just going to pay attention to what's happening in your foot, moving it around a little bit, with the main focus being how we're affecting the left leg. And then when you're ready, you'll come forward, hands and knees. Lower the right knee next to the left. Send the left foot back. Tuck the toes under in happy days. Notice what's happening there. And then when you're ready, we'll go ahead and switch sides. You might need to move your blocks if they're immediately in your way. And then you'll bring your left shin to the back of your right calf. And first things first, just going up and down, noticing where you can apply a bit of pressure onto the back of that right calf, giving it some tender, loving care. And then once you've done that, you go a little right to left, playing the violin with the left calf, or rather left shin into the right calf. And once you feel like you've completed that, or at least got enough heat on the back of your right shin, we'll do what's called pin and stretch. So you find a fun spot for you, then you push the left shin back into the back of the right calf, push your pelvis back to the right heel, and you might stay there, or you might walk up. And I'm noticing that as I'm doing this with you, my right calf is a whole heck of a lot more sensitive than my left. And I noticed also that there is more sensation on the front of my right shin, so that's the one underneath. And so you're just going to pay attention to what's happening to you. One of the fun things about the body is it isn't actually symmetrical, meaning even though we have a right and a left, even though we have two of many things, that doesn't mean those two things are exactly the same. And I'm experiencing that right now in the back of my right calf and the front of my right shin. And then when you're ready, you'll come forward and we'll try that again. Find a different spot in the back of the right calf. Push the left shin into the back of the right calf. Push your pelvis back towards your heels. And then you might stay there, or you might start to walk your hands back towards your pelvis. You might stay exactly still, rock a little forward and back, or right to left. But you're paying attention to your breath first and foremost. It will allow you to notice if you're pushing too hard. So just notice that. And then finally come forward and draw that left shin into the back of the right calf. Whoa, that was a totally different sensation on the side. And then you'll pause, and you might notice that you can play with how that left foot is doing things. It might point up towards your right hip, or down to the floor, or just wiggle around. And you're just noticing and breathing. Cool. And then when you're ready, you'll come forward, hands and knees. Extend that right leg back, tuck the toes under, pulse a little forward and back, and just notice how your right calf, back of the right leg feels. Awesome. So those were two short things that you could do to insert into your practice before you do a Surya Namaskar A or a Surya Namaskar B. I find that it just helps open up the backs of the legs, and it really helps me to feel like I can find a complete forward fold, as well as that just hip flexion and hamstring extension that often happens in downward facing dog. Cool. So thank you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the field below. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon. Namaste.